The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
In the Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, we have a right to life, we have a right to defend life.
This legislation is centered on meeting the needs of Idaho families.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
I feel like we're back to an unappointed board that gets to decide who is essential and who is non-essential.
The courts have long held that our ability to transfer title on real property benefits society as a whole.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
For me, it's about a couple things. It's about food security, it's about national security, and it's about preserving American exceptionalism.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Idaho Signal, we are live on the air. Welcome, everybody. And hello, can you all see me? Can you all hear me? Here we are. Very good. All right, folks, welcome to the program. We had to go breaking live with this story. I know there's a lot of news happening in the world today, and in our country especially. But right here in Idaho, news broke yesterday when former Solicitor General, former advisor to President Trump, Theo Wold, broke some news on X with this new report out of the Center for Immigration Studies, CIS, that listed 3 counties in Idaho as being somewhat non-cooperative with ICE when it comes to detaining and turning over illegal aliens that are arrested within their jurisdictions. And so we've been collecting a lot of information. We've been following the story. I'm sure you have too. And so we are pleased to bring on Theo Wold as well as Brian Allman from the Gem State Chronicle. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. I want to kind of get everybody kind of up to speed here. I know there's been a lot of information. We have our sources. We've been following the press releases from the sheriff's office. I've been talking to folks in high positions of power within these different counties and where they stand. And so we've got a lot of information. We kind of want to get everybody up to speed. But of course, the biggest thing, of course, always is we want to take away what are we going to do about it, and what do we need you folks out there to do. And so at the bottom right now, because you're going to be seeing this scroll throughout, is we need you to contact your sheriff's office and ask them why did ICE list them on this document. And we will get into this document in just a moment. But this is an actual real document from ICE that listed Power County, Bonneville County, and Kootenai County on this list of non-cooperative, in some capacity, non-cooperative when it comes to handling detainers from departments. So Theo, welcome to the program. I want to throw it to you first here to kind of set us up. What are we looking at? What prompted you to share this news yesterday?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on, Matt. So look, I think the best place to start is with the Center for Immigration Studies. That's a nationally respected immigration group that advocates for what some people call immigration restrictionism, or what we would actually just say in common language, secure borders and an orderly legal immigration system into the United States. The Center for Immigration Studies does a lot of oversight work on Democrat presidential administrations. That's one of their big tools, is FOIAing information that otherwise is concealed either under a national security exemption or whatever cooked up excuse that the current current players want to give to prevent the public from knowing, important information, gotaways at the southern border, daily crossing numbers, or in this instance, the work on detainers and the work of law enforcement vis-a-vis ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Unit. ICE is the sub-agency at the Department of Homeland Security charged with carrying out the hard work of removing illegal aliens, including criminal illegal aliens present in the United States. So what is a detainer? Okay, a detainer is an agreement. It is a notice sent from ICE to a local law enforcement agency when that local law enforcement agency has booked an individual who is identified as not having status or citizenship papers, essentially is a foreign national or an illegal alien who is unlawfully present in the United States. That then gives a notice back to ICE that they have fingerprinted, adequately identified that individual. And then ICE, under this existing federal law, has 48 hours to come and collect that individual. The local law enforcement authority is to keep that individual, the criminal illegal alien, in their facilities for 48 hours, and then to provide notice to ICE if they decide to release that prisoner in advance of that 48-hour window. Local law enforcement is compensated and reimbursed for the charges of the costs of keeping the illegal alien in their facilities. So it's not free, but local law enforcement agencies are reimbursed, and this works fairly effectively when there's good communication between the feds and local law enforcement agencies. So in 2020, there's been some miscommunication and some misapprehension about the dates here. In 2020, ICE was required under new federal regulations to keep a monthly running count of what jurisdictions in the country are complying with ICE detainers and which ones are not. And a lot of this grew out of work that I and others like Stephen Miller did in the Trump White House in trying to figure out a way to get around sanctuary jurisdictions like California, who essentially said, we're not going to comply with federal immigration law. And moreover, we're not even going to ask the essential questions to identify whether someone is an illegal alien and if they have committed a crime in our jurisdiction. So we asked that ICE keep a running tally every month, that the report be published and then updated every month to show what jurisdictions are compliant and which ones aren't. There's two designations in the report. Non-cooperative means that you were releasing illegal aliens in advance of that 48 hours. You were not keeping them for the full duration, and you did not provide notice to ICE that you were going to release those individuals. The other is limited cooperation, which is you did not keep them for the full 48-hour duration, but you notified ICE and said, look, we're not going to keep them any longer for whatever reason. We don't have the resources, the capacity, the manpower. It's a nonviolent offense, so we're just releasing. Whatever the reason might be, you notify ICE, but you still release them. My interest in this report, as I've said in various places, is I think there is a growing awareness by a lot of American citizens, and especially here in Idaho, that you can affix a label to any kind of policy position. So you can say, with broad strokes, Idaho is a state that refuses sanctuary jurisdictions. We're not California. But the rubber hits the road in the actual application of policy in determining whether or not you're holding criminal illegal aliens with sufficient time and with sufficient notification for ICE, which has the responsibility. They're the only agency that has a responsibility for removing those criminal aliens and sending them back to their countries of origin. So you can call yourself a sanctuary-free state, but what's going on on the local ground? And look, and I think the other important part of this is as people make their decisions about what candidate to support in the 2024 election, how they feel about their policies on immigration, it's obvious where the Democrats have sort of stated their ground on this, which is they're not going to be doing ICE detainer work. They don't believe in deportations. They don't believe in removals. And the Trump campaign has been very clear that they believe that there is a time and now a need for mass deportations. Well, how do you facilitate mass deportations? Part of that equation includes state and local law enforcement and their ability to secure criminal illegal aliens and ensure that they're available for federal agents to remove. Last thing I'll just say very quickly, Matt, is look, there's been a lot of conversation in Idaho over the last few months about whether Idaho is okay with illegal alien labor, whether we should have unaccompanied minor children in our schools. Let's just be clear about one thing here. This report isn't based on data over unaccompanied minor children showing up at a high school or middle school without sufficient documentation to prove their status. It's not that category. It's not the category that they've done workforce enforcement raids and arrested folks who were at dairies or on farms. It's not that category of illegal alien either. These are illegal aliens who have broken the law, who have committed crimes in Idaho, and who have been arrested and booked into local county jail facilities. And then those facilities are not keeping them long enough for ICE agents to come and collect them. That's who we're talking about, and that's the circumstance that needs to be thoroughly vetted. And as you noted at the top of this segment, the question needs to be asked of these local law enforcement agencies: why are you on the report? Not that the report is fake, not that the report has a different timeline. The data is from June of 2024, and the question needs to be asked: if Idaho is a sanctuary-free state, why are you listed as not being cooperative with federal immigration enforcement authorities?
Yeah, that is the key. That is the question we were asking there, Theo. Thank you so much for walking us through all this, especially how the detainer process works and who are the ones to be detained. And they are not, like you said, your law abiding, as far as you can tell, dairy farmer. It's the criminal. They were arrested by local authorities. Okay, Brian, you've been doing your due diligence. We all have here on trying to get communication here from the three different sheriff's offices in Power, Bonneville, and Kootenai, and we have varying degrees of response here about what's going on here. So I want to kind of throw it to you. We'll get some reaction on these responses from Theo as well. But what can you tell us about? I guess we can go through one by one. What has Kootenai said, and we'll take it from there.
Well, Kootenai is an interesting case because you have Sheriff Bob Norris, and the moment this news hit Twitter, people on both sides of his campaign started, throwing mud at each other. Either this proves that he's working with the feds to allow illegal aliens to, run wild, or it proves that somebody's out to, somebody in the federal government, the Biden administration, is out to get him by publishing, false or misleading information. But really, all like Theo said, all we want to know is why are these three counties appearing on this list? So Kootenai was the first one to respond, perhaps because they got some of the most initial attention, and they basically called it fake news. He says it's completely false, and the sheriff goes down to list the things he's doing: opposing any bills in the legislature to provide driver's licenses for illegals, testifying in legislative hearings to strengthen laws on illegal aliens, and finally confirming that no ICE petition for a criminal alien has been denied, which seems to contradict the ICE report that says that Kootenai has, for some reason, been non-cooperative on these detainer requests. A couple other interesting things in the statement. They said a local representative of Department of Homeland Security said that it's not on an official publication as a sanctuary county. Of course, the ICE document does not say sanctuary county. That's not an actual official term, as far as I know. It just says they're non-cooperative on these two issues: detaining people for 48 hours and then notifying ICE if they are going to let them go. So yeah, that's a bit of a red herring. Center for Immigration Studies is just the messenger here. They're just publishing information they got from ICE. It's not like they're making things up.
Right. Yeah. And I spoke with the executive director of CIS this morning to, double check, confirm that this document was, in fact real and that it wasn't altered or in any way. And he gave me his assurance. He walked me through their FOIA process. Oftentimes they have to sue the government to get these documents. He doesn't believe that this was the case here, that they had to sue, but they got the document. The data we can see here at the top is listed as being current as of June of this year. And so they obtained the document in July and then spent the next few weeks setting up their press release and updating their map with the list. And if we walk through this list here, Theo, you can kind of see here that the date, I think if you go up a little bit, guys, every month these field offices are to issue their understanding of their cooperation through the counties. Is that kind of what this tells us here?
Yeah. So what this data would be tracking is on a monthly basis, some number of the total arrests of illegal aliens and then the detainers. So petition isn't the right word. I know that's what was used in Sheriff Norris's release, but a detainer, that's the notification. And so, the number of arrests and then the detainers that were fulfilled. And that's data tracked on a monthly basis. And again, as I said earlier, just remember why this data is important, because federal law requires state and local law enforcement authorities to do this work. I mean, remember, state and local law enforcement authorities receive all kinds of grant monies from the federal government to, do inoperable radio systems, to train and in anti-trafficking, investigations, all kinds of money. And as part of the spending that comes from the federal government has also said in the Immigration and Naturalization Act, you are to notify the federal government when the ICE authorities, when you have apprehended an illegal alien who has committed a crime in your jurisdiction. So this data is trying to provide a window onto who's actually fulfilling that legal requirement and who's neglecting it.
Yeah, great point. Okay, good. Well, let's look at what Bonneville said. And Bonneville seems to be wants to ask some questions as well. Brian, walk us through here this news release.
So this one came out today. So, Kootenai got theirs out the same day and Bonneville got theirs out the next day. It says similar things, that they deny the, whatever implication comes from their county name being on that list. And it's interesting how Sheriff Samuel Hulse here suggests that the current stress on ICE and Department of Homeland Security resources is, causing inadequacies at the border, and obviously allowing people to cross the border, that invasion on the southern border. And the implication I'm getting from the statement is that perhaps there's something going on that their priorities are wrong, or their resources are not properly being deployed, and that's why perhaps Bonneville County got erroneously put on the report. I'm just reading into that. What's also interesting, though, is that it says that the sheriff's office will be seeking an explanation from the Department of Homeland Security as to why the facility was categorized as limited cooperation. And they say they will continue cooperating fully, as they claim to have been. So again, once again, the county sheriffs is saying that they cooperate fully. So why did they get put on the list? Is there some gremlin at ICE who is just, randomly putting on different counties, or is there some miscommunication, disparate?
Yeah. On that point, Brian, I mean, I think it's an interesting question, like on the gremlin, because, I said earlier to a colleague of mine who also works in the immigration policy and law space, the interesting thing about this list is no one questions any of the liberal jurisdictions that are listed here. No one has any misgivings that, they are declared sanctuary states under state law in Washington, California, Oregon, Illinois, New York, parts of Pennsylvania. So go through that list and you'll say, oh yeah. So that makes it Multnomah County, the city of Portland, King County, Washington State. Those are all a sanctuary jurisdiction. So the oddity here would be, if there is a gremlin at the Department of Homeland Security, they are cherry picking just a handful of red counties to include on a list that is otherwise entirely reflective of the reality we know to be true.
Yeah, it's a good point. And you have to ask yourself, why would they do that? Why would they pick on these little counties like that? Especially here in rural Idaho, under 2 million people and whatnot, and clearly a red state and stuff. The political ramifications are kind of bizarre here, if there is any, or motivations rather. Okay, so when it comes to Power County, now I have a source down in that part, in that neck of the woods, who actually spoke with the sheriff of Power County, and they delivered somewhat a same response. They don't know why they're on this list. They cooperate fully, and they're as mystified as anybody else. So I don't think we have an actual statement that has been released by Power. They are a smaller county. They don't have much of a social media presence, and like these other two big counties do. So we'll await to see any official word. But I have it on. I stand by my source and what I learned, that Power County is in the same position here, at least broadly speaking, that they do comply as well. But and Theo, you had mentioned earlier this 287. Yeah.
So, I mean, the interesting thing about Power County is what I have been told is their facility is extremely limited. The resources that they have, the bed capacity that they have on offer in that facility. So if they are looking at, standard criminal activity among citizens on top of with some, a rise or even steady numbers in illegal alien crime, they may not have the resources and the capacity to house those illegal alien criminals. But what's interesting about Power County is it actually has a formal 287G G agreement with ICE. And this is essentially the gold standard for local law enforcement agencies. It allows the local law enforcement agency to enter into essentially a really formalized memorandum of understanding with ICE, and allows the personnel at the local law enforcement level to be deputized to perform some of those more federal investigative and arrest authorities that ICE officers have alone. And so when you can look at this at the ICE website. They have a list of the existent 287G agreements. This was a big push, when I was in the Trump White House, was to encourage more sheriffs to enter into formal 287G agreements with ICE. But you can look at the existing list, and it's exactly what you would expect. A lot of sheriffs from counties in Texas, in Florida, in Alabama, and Arizona, authorities that are inundated with illegal aliens and illegal alien crime, and folks who really want to work with federal immigration authorities to get a handle on it and get the illegal alien criminals removed from their jurisdictions. There are only 2 counties in Idaho that currently have 287G agreements. That's in Gooding County and Power County. So look, Power County's on this list, and I think it's right, as you and Brian have noted. We should ask the question why, and we should get, they should be eager to get a response from the Seattle field office, or I think in their instance, actually the Salt Lake City field office, or headquarters in DC. But they should also be credited for having entered into a 287G agreement with ICE, and that is really to the credit of Power County legal authorities there, because that really is the gold standard, showing that they're taking this problem seriously, and they really want to work to mobilize the resources and the assets to remove criminal illegal aliens from their jurisdiction.
Yeah, and that's great that you point that out, because we're not trying to come on here and unmask some grand conspiracy. It really just comes down to, let's make sure we're just doing what we're supposed to be doing. And if everybody here in Idaho is on the same page, which largely speaking we are in terms of our values and so forth, this should be a no-brainer. So that's a great call. In fact, if you want to call your own sheriff, you don't have to just be calling up these 3 sheriffs, but if you want to call up your own sheriff and ask, hey, should we be on this 287G? What can you tell me about it? Why aren't we cooperating fully? Then maybe that's another question we should be asking. So I thank you for that. That's great. I don't want to belabor any of this and try to and again go off into conspiracy theories or anything, or even get involved in politics, because it really doesn't matter who you're rooting for in terms of candidates for sheriff or anything like that. This really just comes down to the question: why are we on this? Why are certain counties on this document? Theo, you noted that the lower half of Idaho is probably under the jurisdiction of Salt Lake City field office when it comes to ICE. In the northern part, it's the Seattle office, and so they carry that region if you're in north part of Idaho. So I guess going forward here, guys, Brian, did you? Did you do a public records request yourself, and what did you find out?
So in his statement, Sheriff Norris up in Kootenai County said that the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office temporarily houses illegal aliens from throughout the Pacific Northwest for ICE. And from my reading and from my conversation with Theo here, I learned that most likely requires an intergovernmental services agreement. Basically, it's one government entity, the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, making an agreement with another, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that since there's, if there's no place to put illegal aliens who are already in the system and pending deportation or pending court dates for their trials, then they can store them temporarily in the Kootenai County jail. And that appears to be what he's talking about, what Sheriff Norris is talking about in his statement. So I sent a public records request asking the sheriff's office for that, that document, if they have that agreement. And I got something back saying that there was no such document. And instead, they, Idaho Code, this is a quote from the response on the records request, Idaho Code allows us to house federal inmates per Idaho Code 2601, 2615, and 196102. So those are 3 different sections of law. The first one, 2601, deals with just the purpose of the county jail. And the other one, 615, says that federal prisoners must be held in the county jail under the same circumstances that state, local prisoners would be. And those actually date back to 1863, the original territorial constitution.
So basically, Brian, you're saying they're just citing law that right. Says, oh, we're doing this because it's already in statute.
They're saying they can.
They can.
They're not. I don't know. Maybe I need to change my wording and get some memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding between the governmental organizations to figure out exactly what their agreement is.
All right. Well, you'll still dig on that, so that's good. But Theo, 2 years ago, the state legislature passed a law already saying we won't be doing sanctuary cities for illegal immigration or the kind. So if an agency like a sheriff's office is saying, well, this is already against the law, we don't do that. I mean, how much? I mean, they don't have to declare it, but they just, like you said, they just don't have to fulfill it.
Yeah, I'm sure Mark shared this story with you, but he's relayed this to me many times about a sheriff in South Carolina who said, "Look, we don't have any sanctuary policies here," and I can tell you that because I did a Control F through all of our internal regulations, and the word sanctuary never appears. Right? Yeah, I mean, it's amusing, but look, sanctuary policies could take the form of a very charitable explanation for what's going on here, and I've shared this with a number of folks up north. It could be the case that the jail, in the administration of the jail, they draw no distinction between criminal illegal aliens and criminal citizens for nonviolent offenses. So, someone is booked on driving under the influence, and for a nonviolent offense, they only hold that individual as a standard operating procedure for 24 hours, and then they're released, right? Like the drunk tank, the classic drunk tank. Like, once you sober up, we'll send you home tomorrow. Now, right. if that individual happens to be an illegal alien, then no, they're not fulfilling their detainer agreement with ICE, right? That's where you would have a problem. So it could be something so simple as the way that the jail is being administered, or it could be something more significant, which is just a refusal, essentially, to acknowledge that there is an illegal alien crime problem in the state. And I think this is where it's really important to be solutions oriented. The city of Eagle down here in the Treasure Valley recently enacted an ordinance that made very clear that the city would not deliver social service benefits, entitlement spending to illegal aliens. That's sort of, the civil side, if you will, of municipal government. The criminal side would be ensuring that local law enforcement is doing everything it can. And I understand any number of sheriffs could come on this program and say, I'm cash strapped. I have a real difficulty hiring deputies. We don't have the resources that we need. And I acknowledge that's a problem for local law enforcement everywhere in the country. And it's a real challenge. And a lot of talented lawmen and lawwomen do a lot with very little. That should be acknowledged. But if it's the concern of Idaho voters and Idaho citizens that we prioritize the removal of criminal illegal aliens, then we've got to come up with another solution for this. And that may involve, sometimes it may involve passing a bond to enhance the local detention facility. It may require increasing the budgets for local sheriff's offices as they deal. I mean, remember, 15.5 million illegal aliens have entered this country in the last 3 years. It just on the pure numbers alone, with that size of a population group, there are going to be nefarious actors in there who commit crimes. And so we could be looking at the beginning of essentially an illegal alien crime wave that is going to hit everywhere from Clearwater County to the city of Boise. And maybe we are going to have to ask for more resources to address it. So on the civil side, city ordinances that make clear, if you are an illegal alien who has come here to ride free on the Idaho taxpayer, we're not interested. On the criminal side, making sure that local law enforcement agencies do everything they can, even given resource constraints, to work with federal authorities. And then the last piece would be, if there are resource constraints, then we need to have an open, really full discourse on that in Idaho to determine if the people of Idaho want to make sure, as has been repeatedly said, right, Matt? People have said, look, there's differing opinions on migrant workers and illegal aliens in the agricultural sector and their importance in the economy here in Idaho. There's different opinions about unaccompanied minor children, who are not citizens entering our school systems. Okay, set those aside. Everyone says they agree on removing criminal illegal aliens who have broken our laws and committed crimes, often against American citizens. If we have agreement on that, maybe we need to have a bigger debate. And I'll just say one last thing. It was just 3 years ago that an active duty U.S. Marine from Idaho was home visiting his family, and he was killed by a drunk driving illegal alien. Plenty of Idaho families have been victimized by illegal alien criminals and have suffered the ultimate consequences from that, losing loved ones, not just losing property, losing loved ones. And so I think for a lot of Idaho citizens, this is an important discussion, and they want to see it addressed, not just wiped away or tucked under the rug as we don't have that problem. Concerns about this are misguided, and look somewhere else, right? We need to have a discussion about it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's why we needed to go live with this today. We've been screaming about it because we know the ramifications, the examples that you just brought up, from those tragic events all the way down to just the strain on our resources. I mean, that we talk about it all the time, especially during this economy, and it's atrocious. So we are going to keep pounding away on this because it is an important issue. Theo, I thank you for joining us. Brian, I thank you for joining us. I want to make sure everybody that you understand what we are asking you to do. We are not claiming anything. The sheriffs have come out and said that they are fulfilling this, okay? That they are cooperating with ICE in this manner. But as you just heard throughout the last 25 minutes, half hour here, is that there seems to be something very confusing here because ICE has listed these counties as being non-cooperative in some capacity. And so we need to find out why. And so it is up to your sheriff's office to figure out why they are on there. And I have it in good standing, good authority from Mark over at CIS that they want nothing more than an empty map. And so they will be happy to take all of the counties in Idaho off this map if there was an incorrect if the information was incorrect. But they are an accountability organization and they are simply informing us. And I thank them for informing us for getting into this mess. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Folks, we're going to keep airing this episode. We'll keep it running today so you can all watch it again, but please do share it. Please take note of the numbers below. Ask them why they're on this list and also ask them how they can get into this 287G deal, right, Theo? I mean, is that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I mean, for a lot of these local law enforcement authorities, it may be a question of limited resources, but it's still worth asking, hey, look, as we look forward to January of 2025 and the possibility of a Trump presidency, if we're serious about mass deportations and removing criminal illegal aliens from the United States, it will begin with local and state law enforcement. Let's do everything we can to cooperate with federal authorities.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Theo, where can everybody follow you? What's the best place to keep up with your work?
Yeah, you can find me on X at Real Theo Wold and also the Claremont Institute's Center for the American Way of Life in Washington, D.C. I'm a scholar fellow there and do a lot of writing there, so check me out in both places.
Excellent. Brian, same for you.
Follow me on Twitter at GemStateBrian. Also go to gemstatechronicle.com for my writing.
Excellent. And I know you have a published article there that you'll keep updating with this information. So we'll keep that going. Folks, thank you again for joining us and dropping in. We just saw the numbers skyrocket here, which was pretty cool. So keep sharing this around and we will we'll provide you more information online. So I'm Matt Edwards. You can follow me at True Matt Edwards on X. But also thank you for watching and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Take care.